Tell Me More podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. My name is Olivia Molly Rogers and I'm excited to get comfortable in the uncomfortable with you and remind you that nobody is perfect and everybody has something going on behind the scenes that you may not know about. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome back to Tell Me More. Today we are joined by the wonderful Laura Henshaw, little ray of sunshine. Laura is the CEO and co-founder of the Australian health and fitness app Kick. Her mission with Kick is to help people rebuild their relationship with wellness and, most importantly, themselves. Laura is also the co-host of Kick Pod, author of A Girl's Guide to Kicking Goals and You Take Care. And she has a monthly column with Vogue Australia, and she's constantly in high demand for sharing her advice and pearls of wisdom on incredible platforms. So I'm honoured to have you here with me today, Laws.
Oh, Liv, I'm so excited to be here.
That's so nice.
It's always very funny sitting through an intro. I'm like,
yeah, I know. You're like, do I say something? But also yours, I could have kept going. There's so much to
No, I think that was
that was enough.
Lot. Thank you.
That was very
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Liv.
Now, it's interesting when I say, like, you are always in high demand for sharing advice. You gave me advice. I don't know if you remember this, but just after I'd won Miss Universe, I was so overwhelmed and didn't know what to do. And I remember looking at your page and thinking, you know, you had a lot of people who looked up to you and followed you, and I suddenly had followers and I didn't know what to do with them. And I messaged you and asked if you'd be willing to have coffee with me to talk about it. And you said yes, and we caught up and we went to Legacy.
Yes.
The old stomping ground, yeah. And you were exactly as you are now, just so warm and kind and compassionate. And you gave me such great advice and I will never forget it. So thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you. I remember being in the boxing gym together.
Oh, yeah.
And our friendship growing in there as well.
Yeah. So it's been like 7 years since I met you.
Crazy.
And it's been amazing watching your journey. I would love for you to tell me how you would describe yourself to a complete stranger who doesn't know anything about you.
That is one of the hardest questions.
I know.
Okay, so I'm meeting them and saying, hello, I'm Laura, blah. Okay, I think the first thing that comes to mind now, can I bring work into it?
You can answer however you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
there's no rubric here.
Okay. I think what I'm trying to work through currently is when you are a founder, your job becomes intertwined in yourself, but it's very important as well because work can't always go well. As we know, there's things out of our control. And so when it's so deeply intertwined and that's your entire identity, it can be really hard to ride the highs and lows. And so I think my default would be saying, hi, I'm Laura, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kick. Mm-hmm. But
that's a really nice line.
Thank you.
It's a good elevator pitch.
But I wonder if I had to say a little bit about myself, I would say, hi, I'm Laura. I really love running and I really love helping people. Maybe that's the non-work related.
Yeah. I love that. I know I'm sorry to put that on you, but I got this new journal and it has prompts like that that encourages you to really reflect on you as a person. And I always find it so hard.
What's yours?
Oh,
intro you to me, please. But we've obviously just pretend we've never met.
I actually think I have the journal in. Should I read it out?
Yes.
Okay. I said, I always struggle to answer questions like this, whether it's about what I do for work or what I'm like as a person. I'd say I'm a bit of a dork. I'm caring. I have a lot of love to give and I love to be loved in return. I would do anything for the people that I love. I'm an introverted extrovert, as I really enjoy spending time with people, but also really need downtime to decompress. I love music, cooking, reading, learning, running, painting, watching the sunrise, particularly when there are hot air balloons, and the light in the afternoon about an hour before sunset. I get the most joy in my life from the little things and people.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for sharing that, Liv.
No
That's
worries.
beautiful. I love that. So what was the prompt in the journal?
The prompt is, how would you describe yourself to a completely unknown person?
And you know what I love about that is it's got a lot of lines, hasn't it?
It's just got space.
I love that because I think that gives you permission to, because what went through my head when you asked me was like, well, I don't want to talk too much about myself. I'll just say like a sentence.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think like, oh my God, who does she, you know, that's the thing. I feel like that's a fear a lot of us have. Like, we don't want to seem arrogant or whatever.
Yeah.
As women, a word that's kind of used quite often to describe us if we're confident. And so I love that because that book gives you permission, which of course you should automatically give yourself anyway, to go deeper into who you are, because we're so much more layered than just our job. Or just for me, a hobby. Like how much, I know I love running, but there's, but there's so many, it's a big part of much to us.
Yeah. I feel like the fear of answering a certain way comes from partly just being a woman in the world, but also a woman with a platform. When you go to answer questions, do you hear what people might say in a negative way?
I think it depends on where I'm at on my journey at the time.
Okay.
I think sometimes if I'm struggling with something, then I will go to that straight away. But I think something that over the past few months, and this it's so interesting, I feel like I'm sure I'm going to have to revisit this conversation as a reminder to myself maybe 2 or 3 months down the track, because our confidence kind of goes like this. I've recently really leaned into when people say you're cringe, like taking that almost as a compliment, because I feel like most of the time when we say someone is cringe, it's a projection that they're doing something that we wish. It's not about the person that you say is cringe. It's about you, because they're doing something that you're like, who do you think you are to do that? And so what I come back to is I don't want to live my life confined in a box that other people put me in. And if I stay in that box, I won't be cringe. People won't be like, who does she think she is? All of those comments that people make. But that would be for me a failed life, because I haven't lived my life for you and for myself. I haven't lived my life for myself. And I'm also living my life to fit a mold that everyone else makes of me, or I think that they expect of me, instead of the life that I want to live and who I am, and going deep into that. And so I think right now, even though I did have reservations of, how long do I go into this? I don't want to talk too much. I still think that if someone were to say, first of all, I'm on a podcast. Like, guys, if I'm not talking, this would be a really hard interview for Liv. I just sat here and if I just gave you 4-word answers, you'd be like, cool. So that's number one. But number two, it's like if someone's listening to this and being like, oh, Laura talks too much, she's cringe, I would get that person to go in and ask, why are you projecting that onto, like, what makes you feel that? Because often it's not about me, it's about the person and something that's coming up for them.
When you first started out, I'm sure you didn't feel that way though, because same. How did you grapple with, wanting to be authentic and be yourself online, and then not getting criticized for everything?
First few years at least of being online, I was not myself. I think I was trying to work out who I was, and that's pretty hard to do online when everyone is watching you. So I think the first few years I was definitely trying to fit into, especially with my connection to the modeling industry. I remember the day that I took that out of my bio, because I'd stopped doing, because I think with my Instagram, I used to think, my Instagram is a portfolio. I have to look really good, and if I don't look perfect, then I won't get booked, because a client might see me from a different angle and realize that, she's actually not good enough. She doesn't look good enough for us to book this job. And I think that was also fueled the fire, some fuel went on the fire through a few experiences I had with modelling, where I was literally booked for a job, shot the job, and then I saw the campaign come out, which I would have been so excited. It was 2 memories I have about, and it was someone else.
Really?
Yeah, it happened a few times. And for me, I was like, I know how much that shoot day cost them. Obviously, they have hair and makeup. They booked me. They had the photographer, the videographer, etc. And the photos were so bad that they had to go and reshoot the entire thing.
Well, you don't know that for a fact, though.
No, I know now. I was like, I need to find out. And I didn't fit. But that was based on, whoever that person was. Yeah. I didn't fit their idea, and it was with my body, the size of my body, of what they wanted their brand to look like in market.
That is awful.
Yeah, it was. But I think because at that time I cared a lot about the way that I looked, and I thought that was 90% of my worth and value to society. And so I think because of that really rocked me. And then I became super hyper vigilant on it on social media, thinking like, I can't show myself in any other angle, because imagine if the same thing happens. And I remember it was like I had this light bulb moment of like, from a modeling perspective, this does not serve me anymore. I value so many other things about myself and about others around me that have nothing to do with the way that my body looks. And so for me, it was important to kind of move away from it, so then I could stop correlating all of that value to the size of my body, because it's completely irrelevant and is honestly the most, like, the least important thing and interesting thing about me and about all of us. So in that period, I definitely was being a different person online, for sure. And then from there, like, I remember even back, and I've spoken about this before, in using Facetune. So Facetune is like a editing app. I don't judge people who use it at all, because I think we all have reasons, we all have our insecurities, and like each to their own. But I do find it very problematic, especially with some of the filters it has in there. It like tells you that you can make your face better and you can have a perfect face and a perfect body. That again, it just kind of goes back to that thing that you're not good enough the way that you are. But I remember I used to always feel super uncomfortable about my arms. Like every photo I'd look at, it's the first thing I went to. I was like, my arms don't look good in this photo, which, as I'm saying this, like, it sounds so silly, but at the time that really made a difference to me and how I felt in my confidence. And I would edit them. And I stopped editing it. And it took me a little bit of time, but then because every time it was like, it was feeding this insecurity that I had to change them and it looked better when I edited it. But as soon as I stopped editing it, it took a little bit of time to kind of get over that. But then I stopped noticing it, because I wasn't fixated that like, I have to edit this photo. It's not good enough the way that it is. And then I started just sharing stuff of me, like without makeup or whatever, without a filter or whatever it might be, in my body, in angles that I was like, oh, I don't look flattering in that way. And nothing happened. Like, no one cared. People actually said like, thank you for sharing this, because I also feel this pressure, to look perfect or to hold up these standards that society puts on us. And so I think from that point, that was a few years in, I then felt way more kind of empowered to be myself and show up as myself.
You do such a great job at that. Was that around the time that you started Kick, or was it earlier?
Yeah, so it was. Thank you. That means a lot, Liv, especially coming from you. So I really appreciate it.
That, like, literally, I remember when I started following you, that was why. Because I was like, oh wow, I can't believe how, in a world that then I think you were ahead of your time in sharing real content, real raw, unfiltered content. Because back then it was all about it. Instagram was like a portfolio. Yeah. Not just for people who were models, but for everyone. It was like, you have to get that picture perfect Instagram shot, and no one was really sharing, selfies without makeup or, unfiltered skin or anything like that. And yeah, I think you were really pushing the boundaries in a great way then, and you've continued to do it, and it's been awesome to see. But yeah, it's inspiring that you started when people weren't doing that.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm so glad it has changed. And I was not the first one to do it, like, in no way. But I just think it was just getting frustrated of being like, this isn't me. And then just the feeling of acceptance when you put something out there and you think all of this. It's like anxiety, right? Have you seen Inside Out 2?
No, I haven't yet.
You have to see it.
Really?
So for anyone that's like, what is it? It is it's not a cartoon movie. It's an animated movie.
Animation, yeah.
I don't usually watch animations. And I also don't like olden day films. I don't like Bridgerton. I like things set past like 1995 and then I'll watch it otherwise.
Good to know.
Yeah, anyway. So I just want to set the scene for how good this movie is for someone that doesn't usually like animation.
Okay.
Or olden day films, which is kind of irrelevant. But anyway, I'm quite picky.
You're really stuck on that.
Anyway, so this movie is basically about, so Inside Out 1 is about this girl called Riley, and she grows from a baby till about 11 or 12 years old, and it's all the emotions in her brain. So it's basically, the whole movie is all of the characters are the emotions within her. Then the second part, Inside Out 2, is when Riley is 12 and your emotions change. You get new emotions like embarrassment, anxiety, and some other ones. And anxiety was so interesting to watch it. Like I felt a bit like, oh God, this is like too much of I felt like I could see my own brain on the screen.
Like it's been written about you.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people that have anxiety will probably relate to it. But just in how your brain thinks, there's this scene where they're all in this kind of back room and they're all these little beans, and the anxiety person is like, or the character is like, everyone, you need to put forward to me all of the worst things that could happen so we can prepare for them. Oh. And there was like hundreds of, and it was preparing for this hockey game. It was like all of these things that could go wrong, essentially, like hundreds and hundreds of ideas of things that could go wrong. And the anxiety emotion was so sure that the reason that they were doing that was to protect the girl and protect her from failure. And as I was watching it, it just made me think, because I'm a really big planner and I think through things in a lot of detail, but I think sometimes I get that my anxiety gets caught in that, and I think that I am like preparing myself when really I'm just catastrophizing about, 100 different things could go wrong, because then it's like, well, what if it doesn't go wrong, and what if it goes right, and what if something magical comes? And I think that's what happened when I shared that. And because I'm always conscious of talking to this, because I know for a lot of people listening, they might be like, well, I don't have a platform where I could, share an unfiltered photo of myself. But there's lots of different areas in your life that you can put yourself out there. If you face your fears, and now I'm thinking about this fear in something in the way that my body looks doesn't matter to me. It seems insignificant, but at the time that was in my mind, that was what mattered to me. And so in putting that out there, it was like, I thought all of this stuff would go wrong and nothing happens. Like that is so, and that kind of was a big lesson in facing fears, in that all of these horrible things could happen, but what if they don't?
I love that.
You would love the movie. You have to watch it.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking that now. With my psych, we talk a lot about anxiety and, your big worries and fears. And he takes me to the worst thing that could happen, to be like, okay, let's like talk this through, next step, what happens, say the worst possible thing happens, then what? And actually thinking of it that way is really helpful, because I'm like, oh, even when you get to that point, it's never as bad as it seems. Yeah, I find that really powerful. I need to go and see that movie. I put up a question box to get some questions from the listeners for you, and one of them was about anxiety and someone asking, how did it first show up for you and how do you cope with it now? I would love for you to share that.
So it has shown up. It's been quite, I don't know if you want to call it interesting in terms of where it's shown up. To start with, it actually showed up from a health perspective. So it was I have a nut allergy. It's not really random. I mean, a lot of people have allergies, and I'm anaphylactic to nuts. And I got to a point my health anxiety started to really, and I've always had a little bit of it. Like I remember thinking, or when I was in grade 5, meningococcal came out in the world. I don't know if it was around before that, but that was as a year 5 person. How old are we in grade 5? Like 10 or something. As a 10-year-old, that was the first time I became aware of meningococcal.
It's really
interesting. All over the news.
That. I don't know if you know about my cousin, but that's how he passed away. Yeah.
Which is, I'm so sorry. It's just, it's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
It's scary,
and
right?
it's a fair fear.
And it's exactly like you've literally, you've seen it. Mm. And I remember every day as a 10-year-old, I would wake up and stretch my neck every single day of the year, which was that in terms of the chance of me getting meningococcal and having it every single day, that was definitely probably catastrophizing, thinking that I would have it every single day. Every day, I would check my skin for the rash, because if you press on the rash and it doesn't go away, that's when it's bad. I knew so much about this disease to try and protect myself, but I would say I probably spent a lot of time focusing on that when the risk wasn't as high for me. And so that's where anxiety kind of started for me. And I remember as a kid, it's so interesting. There were so many ads on TV. Like there was one around a bee flying into a Coke can.
I remember that.
Do you remember? That is still in my brain. And to this day, I triple check a can of drink if I'm drinking it.
I spin the little, the bit that helps you open it. I spin that around to cover the top so that a bee can't fly in.
Isn't it so crazy? Yeah. Like that ad. You're the first person I've ever spoken to that's actually remembered it, because everyone's like,
we had don't remember anxiety. I don't know if it's a good thing.
You just fixate on that stuff. And so for me, that's kind of where it started. But I just thought that was normal, like just normal to be, concerned about your health, want to protect yourself. And then when I was kind of in my later teens, and then probably late teens in like 19, then into 20, is when it started getting really bad. And like I'd be on a plane and I couldn't eat the entire time, because even if I was eating something like a banana that I could not have had nuts in it, and I'd basically talk myself into the fact that I've had nuts, the banana was contaminated, and I just then couldn't breathe, and I'd have to like work out my way out of that. So then it kind of got a little bit worse. It's much better now in that instance. It then started kind of moving in from a social perspective, and this is something that I still kind of work through now. I again thought this was normal. Like if you leave a social situation and you're thinking for hours about and this actually happened the other day. I was going to text you about it, and I was like, I'll bring it up on the podcast with you.
Okay.
You came to the Kick New Balance event.
Yeah.
And I drove you home. And in the car, this has been on my mind all week, I was that day, like it was beautiful, but it drained my energy just went all the way down, because I was full day, and then we had the event. It was amazing, but I had no energy when I was driving you home. And I was when I'm really tired, I context switch very fast, and I don't finish sentences. And I remember dropping you off being like, oh my God, Liv must think there's something actually wrong with me in how I conversed in that car.
See, that is so interesting, because I thought we had a really nice chat, and I was just like, oh, it's so nice of Laura to drop me home. And that's like pretty much all I thought about it.
And then when you texted me and you were like, thank you for the lift. And then I was like, oh my God, I saw your message. I was like, oh my God, I haven't messaged Liv and apologized for not being able to hold a conversation in the car. But that's like social anxiety, right? You didn't think about it for a second, but for me it's consumed like a lot of my space in my brain for the past few days.
I'm really sorry.
No, my God, that's on me. That's on me.
No,
right?
Well, it's not on you. It's on anxiety. The thoughts that run through your mind with that kind of social anxiety, it is exhausting.
It is. And do you know what helps me is actually messaging about it. And that's something that, and my friends know like that I overthink things, that it's something that I'm working through. I really hope that I don't overthink things because it's exhausting to live in that state of always worrying like, oh, what did that person think of me? Did I talk too much? Do they think this? And all of making up all of these assumptions that do not exist. And then actually dealing with because it's like what you spoke about with the worst case scenario. When you're making assumptions, which are anxiety thoughts, multiple of them, you are then emotionally, physically dealing with the grief essentially, or whatever the word is, the emotion of that happening, and that they think that. So I've then, you go away and you think, oh my God, this person thinks this person thinks this person thinks this. The worst case scenario might as well has happened because you've already dealt with it.
Yeah.
Emotionally and like in your physical body, because obviously that stress, and that's what I struggle with, and it is hard, and why I really want to work through it is because you feel it in your body. Like if you have a panic attack, like you feel like you can't breathe, like you feel like your chest is squashed, your body, like I get goosebumps, and that makes me think like, fuck, I need to look after, the stress is not good. It's not just a mental thing. It's like it affects our physical body and our health.
So much.
So what I've really found has helped me quite a bit is actually messaging. So that's what I was actually going to talk to you about today and apologize. And please, in your response, you've just got rid of all of that worry from me, right?
Good.
But I think for anyone that has helped me, for anyone that has social anxiety, I will reach out to the person and say, hey, this has really been bothering me. I just want to say, and you know, when I said this, I just want to make sure that you're feeling okay about it. If you want to talk about it, we can, but it's been on my mind. And I find that helps me get it off my chest. And honestly, 99 times out of 100, they'll come back and be like, I can't remember what you're talking about. I didn't know you said that, but it's all good.
So everything's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like that was a good segue, because I would love to talk about negative comments online, negative people online. For me and for you, I assume, knowing how your brain works in terms of social anxiety and assuming the worst and maybe holding back on doing something because you're like, oh, people are going to see it this way and that's not what I intend it to be. When you get negative feedback online where people are literally confirming that, the place that I'm speaking of is called Tattle, which is a horrible place online.
It's trash.
It really is. Yeah. But it's literally, I accidentally went on there once because someone anonymously sent me a link, and I opened it, and then I was like, oh my God, how do I unsee this? But I also couldn't stop reading it because I just could not believe what I was seeing. And it was every negative thought I could have ever had about myself and worse.
The worst part is it's all anonymous. No one uses their name or their photo. Mm-hmm. It's all, which means it's even more trash.
Yeah, it's literally these people who are hiding behind the screen, keyboard warriors. But I found it really hard after reading it to continue to post for a solid period of time, because all I could hear in my head, say I was posting, I don't know, if they'd criticize the fact that I'd like share my meals sometimes. I'd go to take a photo of my food and then I'm like, oh, they're
like
going to criticize
Janie
that.
9978897_Michigan.
She's going to hate this.
It's gonna come for me.
She's going to be really mad. Or, you know, someone had screenshot my nails and said, God, I'd be disappointed if I left the salon with my nails looking like that. And then I'm like, oh, I better not share my nails. And I wish that I didn't feel that, but I remember feeling like that, I think, for about a month, where I was questioning everything. And then I'm like, why do I ever post anything? How do you combat that? Because I know that you've experienced this, and I also have heard you say before that there was a period of time where you would read negative comments and screenshot them and use them as feedback.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And I'm really proud I don't do that anymore.
Good girl.
So I've been on a journey. So that was, when was that? That would have been early last year. And I think the thing that I have had to work through with that is in terms of my kind of inner critic, the main elements of my inner critic is being an imposter in my life and being a skeptic of my intelligence. Like growing up, or like what I'm deserving or worthy of. So growing up, I found there were a few kind of key moments in my life and two that come to my mind from high school. And in high school, or in school as we're kind of going from 12 to 18, or even if it's in primary school, they're such formative years for forming our belief system and also forming our inner critics, essentially. And one moment that came to my mind was I've never been naturally super smart. You know, the kids that in like year 7, they get like 100 A+ on every single test. Like that was never me. I always had to work. And same with my running, doing cross country. There was kids that which my little sister was one of them. She'd win cross country by like 2 minutes. And I'd be like, how? I can't even come, in the top like 30 or whatever. So within my running and also within my academics, I wasn't naturally, I was just mediocre. I wouldn't do bad, but I was just, or whatever. When I say bad, the school system does not work for everyone, but for me it did. I'm a people pleaser, so I like to please my teachers and study for my tests. So it did work for me.
Same.
And yeah, I thought you'd be similar. And so I think for a type A personality, often the school system does work. Not for everyone, but for me that worked quite well. And so in year 11 and 12, what I taught myself was if I worked really, really hard, if I studied like triple what everyone else was studying, if I ran more and I turned up to training, I could do well. And so it happened in my year 12 cross country race, because a lot of the kids that were supernaturally fast just kind of didn't really care anymore. They didn't train. And then I was able to like come in a good place that I was really happy with. And then also with my VCE results, which is for anyone, Adelaide. What is it called in Adelaide?
It's ATAR now.
Oh, we have an ATAR.
Mine was TER.
Okay. But whatever the
same.
year 12 studies are, exactly. I remember I got my score back and I got a score that I never thought that I could get. And I had someone was saying, oh, wow, Laura, you did such a good job, or whatever they said. It was a nice comment about my score. And which, again, anyone listening, that our score does not define like what our career can be. It does not define how intelligent we are, etc. But what it represented to me was that I tried really hard and my hard work paid off in that instance. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of my friends said, oh, but Laura locked herself in the library the entire year 12. Like, you would have hoped that she got that score. So that then started playing in my head. And same with cross country. That was a projection.
Yeah, because she was competing with you probably.
Correct. But at the time, I think it takes a long time to understand that was a projection of her. And that was, for me, I took that on as, okay, clocking again. Someone is saying that my value is in hard work. And so for me, in kind of then coming up through my 20s, I have really struggled, and coming back to your question around taking on like constructive feedback from trolls and like literally writing notes from Tattle, is because I am petrified that if I lose the inner critic, which drives me to go hard every single day, and that's what makes me work very hard, what am I good at? Like, what do I have left? I think when we put that in on ourselves, that label that like we are, like for me, I'm a hard worker. What am I if I take that away? Who am I? Am I good enough? And that's the question that it doesn't matter what our inner critic is. That's what it always comes down to. Like, am I good enough behind this? And so for me, in working through it, I've really struggled because of that fear of, if I let go of this critic that drives me, then how am I going to be good enough? And so how I've been able to work through that, because it is obviously incredibly toxic going on and reading on an anonymous, stupid, it's honestly the trashiest, darkest part of the World Wide Web.
I would love to share some of them, because I think just for people who have never seen it, and I don't think people should go on there because it's such bad, like it's such negative energy. I've sent you 3.
You sent them on my phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
For you to read about yourself, and I'll read some about myself.
Thank you, so generous.
I didn't go. So our beautiful girl, social media Wiz from Head On Agency went and looked for us, and she didn't really want us to read any of them because she was like, this is so mean. But she found 3. Yours and you have a combined one with Steph.
The first one's so stupid. These 2 need to touch grass. I touch grass every day.
No, but I also just think that one is great because it's so ironic. It's like these people are sitting there behind a screen with a fake name bitching about you and Steph, who are doing amazing things and helping so many people in the world, and they're like, they need to touch some grass.
Do you know what I love about this? Is that I've just learned what this means, this term, because it's a Gen Z term. And so when I read that, I'm just proud that I know what that means.
What does it mean?
Get out in nature. It's exactly what you think it would mean. But us millennials, we're not saying touch grass, but in Gen Zs, they're saying it all the time. So that actually made me happy because it just reminded me that I know Gen Z language.
Okay.
It's like the shittest tennis of all time.
The shittest tennis. Did anyone listen to her podcast with her mum? Her mum seems fun. Olivia was boring though.
What does that get to you?
When I first read it, yeah, because like I had an ex that called me boring.
Yeah, that's so shit.
Yeah, but I know I'm not, and I know that people that know me well know that I'm not. I think I have a fear of, with the podcast and online, of sharing too much of myself, because I think if I share the full scope of my personality, if I was to get criticized more, that would upset me. Whereas like if I'm being a little bit less, a little bit safer, I don't think I share the full range of like my sense of humor, because if I keep it a bit more contained, less can be criticized.
How does that make you feel though? In showing up in a project that is yours, and it's probably one of the most fulfilling things that you do in your life?
The podcast. Yeah. Oh, I feel like it's been a great way for me to be able to show more of that. And people have messaged me saying it's been great to get to know you more, because in this long form content, it's so different and I can be more myself. I think particularly when I have, you know, a chat with a friend, or when it's Daniel asking me questions. But when I'm interviewing someone, I'm conscious not to talk too much about myself as well. So there's that. It's like,
what does boring even mean? Like when someone says you're like that, it's such a subjective meaning of what the word boring means.
Yeah, I just think it means that you don't fit their idea of fun. So, but someone's idea of fun could be like my ex that thought that would call me boring. His idea of fun was getting shit-faced all the time. And so when I wasn't doing that, I was boring. But I'm like, I'm actually okay with being boring if that's what it is. Whereas, you know, I can be completely sober and laugh till I cry with my friends. And to me, like, that's not boring. So, yeah.
Exactly. And I think as well, like if you going back to what you said before around being scared to show your true self on this podcast, because then, as you said, if you show your true self and people don't like you, then that's fucking scary, right?
Yeah.
Because then where do you can't inside be like, oh, well, that wasn't me, because you know deep down that
it was me.
Yeah. But do you know what's worse than that? Like, honestly, it's like kind of like what we're talking about at the start. The scariest thing is not showing up and people not liking you. It's never showing up as your true self, because if you came on this microphone and did not show up as your true self and who you are, your podcast wouldn't be what it was or what it is. You're at like 40 episodes. Fucking incredible. It's such good content. And it's really hard to do an interview podcast, and you were really, really good at it.
You're
and that
so
is
kind.
Because you show up.
I didn't pay her to come on and say this,
but it's
guys.
because you show up as your true self. And if you sat here every time you came on this microphone in front of your community, telling them that like a big part of your message, Liv, is be your authentic self, right? And you weren't your authentic self. That is you doing a disservice to yourself. And you would know deep down, like maybe I might not know, people around you might not know. Maybe your mum would know, for example. But you would know that you are not showing up and giving your all. And that is one of the is the hardest feeling to have, because you're not showing up as you, and it's not fulfilling when you feel that. You feel empty when you do that, right? And that's what listening to this troll shit does, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just like, I feel like obviously tattle is shocking, and not everyone will have a tattle thread about them. It is a blessing to not have a tattle thread about you.
But I think the only reason we referred to tattle is because it's an easier way to find all of the negative comments. And yeah, they come through on Instagram, TikTok. TikTok is a bit of a cesspit, or can be.
TikTok just makes me laugh, because I'm like, it's honestly like middle-aged men in America that
do not know me. Though.
Oh, and kids that don't know you, and your video goes on the wrong side of the internet, and they make a judgment on like the 1 second video they've seen of you. And so I actually find that really easy to brush off, because I'm like, you don't know me, but it's when they know you, that's the stuff that you have to get through. And so for everyone listening, it's like, it's not just about this stuff, like the worry of, you know, what people say about you behind your back. Those people, it's just not letting them rob you of your life, because that's what leaning into it can do, right?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, when I read it that first time, and there was 3 or 4 weeks where I barely posted, because I was like, I can't do this. But I was in a very fragile space. Yeah. I don't feel like that today. Your turn.
Okay, great. Tennis back at me. Perfect. Back in the net. Why does Laura post her daily activities every day? It's so weird that she has to justify what she does to a bunch of strangers. Does anyone care?
Obviously, this person cares because I've written about it. Like, come on now. That's, like, again, I think the irony of these comments and the way that these people are behaving is quite funny. But I wanted you to read that one because in the questions that I had, and I told you this before off mic, someone said, I would love to know more about what Laura does day to day as a CEO. Why does she never share about that?
You can't, and that is the perfect example that you can't, no one can ever please everyone. It is actually impossible.
Like if you were to share too much about that, people will be like, well, this isn't relatable because not everyone's a CEO. But then if you don't share anything about it, people just think you're being fake or not being authentic or hiding parts of your life. Like you can't win if your goal is to please everyone.
No, and also I think it's really, again, coming back to this person, and when I read that out, I was like, what's going on for you that makes you think that I am like that I owe you anything, that I owe you what. Just don't follow me. I think that's one of the most magical things about the internet is you can choose to unfollow people and you can choose to follow them. It's your choice. And I think so often we get caught up in our feeds are like happening or life is happening to us. Our feeds are happening to us. It's like, no, we are actually in control of not everything. There are a lot of things in our lives we can't control, but something like our social media feed, that doesn't happen to us. We choose.
Yeah.
We choose who we follow. So if I'm not pleasing you and it's causing you that much resentment, and that's, as you said, like when you feel resentment and anger towards someone, it is a horrible feeling for your physical health.
Toxic.
It's toxic. And we actually like, you get sick if you feel that way. Like you are physically not in good health if you are always in this resentment. So for this person, I just think you need to go deep in yourself and think like, why do you feel that I owe you that or don't owe you that?
But also assuming that the reason that you're posting those things is to justify what you're doing to strangers when it's not. No. Literally, like you're sharing your life on social media. That is just part of what you do.
Okay, back to you, my friend.
My turn. So, years ago I had short hair.
Yes. How short was it?
It was like under my chin. After Miss Universe, I
under
cut it all off.
just under your ears, chin, like a little bit longer than your ears.
A little bit longer than my ears, yeah. Shaved at the back, like super short.
Yes.
Blonde, changed to dark, hated it, went through a journey. This one says, sharing her hair journey, Jesus Christ, stunning and brave.
So what are they trying? Are they trying to say that like it's not that deep?
Yeah, they're saying who cares? Yeah.
But you care.
But also, like, people ask a lot about my hair and like how I got it to where it is now. So it's for those people. But yeah, I think people say, oh, it's not that deep. But I know that. Like, I'm not saying like,
it's not that deep back to them.
Yeah.
Like you can share whatever the heck that you're not relating your hair journey to, I don't know, something else you've been through in your life.
Oh no.
You just want to share your hair.
I don't think I'm saving lives by talking about my hair.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, it's your platform.
Yeah. It's just, that one was quite
Maybe they
funny.
wish they could cut their hair short and dye it blonde.
Daniel thinks I should put that in my bio.
What?
Stunning and brave.
Oh my, is there 3?
So I think there's one more for you, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Glasses. Okay. Okay. Oh God. Can we please predict what Laura's next emotional breakdown will be about? Her dog getting muddy, maybe another pair of designer boots no one else can afford? ?
She says in her Woolies tights.
I was saying to leave anyone that needs opaque. Is it called opaque tights?
Well, those ones are sheer.
Well, that's sheer. Sorry, no. What is
opaque? Is when they're like you can't see through them.
Okay, sheer tights, bonds. Well, when this goes live, it won't be, but just wait for next time. But they're half price at Woolies at the moment,
and they look great.
Thank you. Now, what this person is referring to was, and it's actually, I'm wearing the boots right now. It's about the boots that I'm wearing right now, and this kind of also comes back to my inner critic, in that I grew up with a shitty relationship with money, I would say, and I've had to really try, and I've got a lot of work I have to do around my relationship with money. I think when you grow, like my parents separated when I was 12, a lot of their arguments from when I was kind of between 6 and 12 were, and Mum always listens to interviews that I do, and hi, if you're listening, Mum, I love you very much. And this is not, our parents were living their lives, or they are living their lives for the first time. So it's nothing to do with, I took this on in my life. They didn't force this on me. And they often, a lot of parents, well, I know they tried to stay together as long as possible for us, for the stability of the family, when they were putting themselves second, thinking that they were being selfish, but really them listening to what they needed inside was, the best for both of them. But a lot of their arguments were about finance, for money. Like I just remember all the time, and I kind of grew up with this mindset around money that was like scarcity mindset of like you have to have an emergency account. Something will go wrong. If you don't have an emergency account, like it's a disaster. Like life is hard. that no abundance mindset, no mindset that like good things will come to you. It was like, no, bad things will happen. You have to be prepared for them.
And it's all going to disappear.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I also grew up when
Why do we have all the same anxiety?
I know. It's like a mirror. I know. But it makes me, but thank you for sharing that, because it makes you feel like you're not alone, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's something that I've worked on with multiple psychologists, is financial anxiety.
And it's important. And I think it's something that money's taboo and we don't often talk about it, but it's actually really, and a lot of the work that I've done recently, which actually came from me doing the Imperfects podcast, which is where I spoke about kind of the trolls and how I save them. A wonderful coach named Janie reached out to me and said, hey, I really want to help you. Do you want to, like, can we do a session together, essentially, within her coaching called the Kintsugi Way? And that to me was a blessing, because if I hadn't have shared that, I don't think I would have opened up for her to come into my life. And she has made the biggest impact on me. Like I can't even explain. But a part of the work we've done together is around my mindset on opportunities, but also around money and that scarcity. And I just never even thought about it being something that could be in my, like, a story that I've told myself or a belief that I have, because it is just so taboo and we don't talk about it, but it's made a huge difference. And so for me, in working through it and kind of the journey I've been on, I feel very guilty for what I have. And that's what I'm trying to, I don't feel deserving of it. I'm worried that it will, and I have been working through this, and I'm definitely in a much better place than I was, like, last year. But when you grow up and you have people around you that have a lot more money than you, or if that's been an instance in your life at any time, you feel resentment towards those people. You're like, sometimes people, like, I have this story in my head that rich people are bad, that they don't share, that they're selfish, like all of these stories that I've formed in my head. So I am petrified of having money, because then I'm like, well, I then become, am I a bad person? Yeah. And there's so much guilt in there. And I think for me, it's the guilt that, because it's so interesting when you grow up, like, all these things that don't actually matter, you think matters, like the car your family drives. Like, I was so embarrassed of my family's car. Who cares? Like, honestly, that is so not important. But that, when I was 12, that mattered to me, right? And so what this person on Tattle is referring to is, when I bought these boots, they're from a designer brand. I love them. Designer brands to me, I'm not like a fashionista, I would say. Like, I
beg to differ. So many questions that came through were asking about your style.
Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. But I'm not studying, the late founder of Off-White, Virgil, and I'm not like obsessed. His work is amazing, but that's not me. Like, that's not something that, if I look at my money values and what really matters to me, I'm not into kind of the art. Like, my sister, for example, loves designer items, but she studies she knows the designer, she knows why. It's like people that love art, like, which is amazing, right? It just depends on what you do or you don't value. But I really love these boots, and I was like, I'm going to buy them for myself.
They look great.
Thank you. And people, I was really, before because I often will share like what I'm wearing, and then people say like, oh, where's that from? And I was so scared to say where it was from, because my worst nightmare in the whole world would be to make someone feel like they need something to be enough when they don't, that they're not good enough because they don't have X item. And I know that's not what I've had to work through, is like, I'm not responsible for every single person who follows me's emotions, because that's like quite a lot to take on. But I do, and this is something that I'm honestly, like, I'm still working through, is not worrying, like, in sharing that I just didn't want anyone to think like, oh my God, I don't have those boots, so I'm not enough. Like, designer items, clothes, anything superficial, it doesn't mean anything. Like, yes, they're lovely things to have if you can have them, but you're not any more or less of a person for owning anything. And I think sometimes social media can make us feel like, if we have the watch, if we have the ring, if we have the whatever, the pair of boots, the handbag, then we will be worthy of friendship with other people, or to be in a certain group, or status. And that stuff does not matter. It doesn't mean you can't wear that stuff. Like, people wear whatever the heck they want. But I just think we sometimes live in just a world where we just think we need more and more and more to be enough. But being comfortable with ourselves and who we are has nothing to do with, what we buy and what we own.
Oh, and you're doomed if you think otherwise. Like if you keep attaching that much meaning to material things, then you're literally never going to be happy. I think I have one more to read. Oh, this one's funny. For everyone suspicious of Olivia and Paul being more than friends, this is Paul's boyfriend. They've gone public on IG. This must have been from like a year ago.
So this is someone coming back to a troll, because that wouldn't be the troll. Is that the troll?
No, the whole thread, a lot of the thread, I remember around the time I split up with my husband, it was people speculating about whether or not Paul and I were an item, because I was spending a lot of time with Paul. They've had similar speculation about Daniel and I. It's like any male that I'm around, people, when I'm single, people think that I am attached to them, and then they talk a lot about, oh, she's so codependent, she can't be on her own. Yeah, that's been a common theme, which I find really interesting, because I would say in my marriage there was absolutely no codependency. Like we lived together, but we lived very separate lives. But again, it just is people projecting their own stuff and also just making assumptions, and it's always the way.
Does that get to you, that one? Because I feel like for you, what is it in that's like the story you're telling yourself or your inner critic, or does that not bother you at all?
I don't think it bothers me, because I know what's true. Yeah. And I know that I'm a very independent person, and I always have been, even though I've always had relationships. I've had a lot of boyfriends. I think part of growing up with separated parents, and it comes back to like the financial thing with your parents, I saw what happens if you don't have financial independence and you don't have independence from your partner in so many ways. It's a really risky place to be. So, you know, for example, like my ex-husband and I, we never combined our finances. We had a shared account for our mortgage, but everything else was kept separate. And I can't imagine not doing that moving forward, because I like to be sort of hyper independent. So it's just interesting to see that that's how people perceive things online. Yeah.
And I'm glad that you finished with that one, because I think what that shows, because that obviously, like, I don't know how long that thread went for, like probably a year, as you said, that you were dating Paul.
I'm not sure, because I won't let myself go on it
whatever
again.
It was, however long it was. But that was completely made up, and that consumed a whole lot of people for a whole lot of time. And I think that's something, like, for anyone listening, that if you read the news, you see because we all do it. You see an article and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that person did that. Oh my God, I can't believe they said that, or they behave that way. But honestly, when it's within like a blog, like whatever, a forum like this, or on the Daily Mail or whatever it is, 99% of the time it is completely made up. So then you have a choice. If you want to spend your time getting sucked into gossip that is actually not true and getting consumed by it because it makes you angry. Oh my God, how could they do that? All of that, getting angry around that is not living your life for you. And we all get caught up in it. But when I do, I'm like, this doesn't matter to me. This doesn't make me feel good. So I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that was such a good one to end on, because like, honestly, 99% of them are lies.
So fake.
Yeah.
I remember when I was reading the forum, and it was back then, it was around the time I had just broken up with my ex, and I was spending a lot of time with Paul, because he was an amazing friend during that time. He showed up for me constantly. Even when I would say, I think I should be alone, he would just like, he actually would call me a lot of the time and be like, I'm just calling to make sure you're not, in your knickers on the floor crying with a bottle of wine. And I'm like, I'm actually fine. I'm fine. Or he would just turn up and bring me, dinner, or just show up in really nice little ways, and so much more than what people saw online. But there was in that forum, it was saying, no wonder her husband left her. She's been spending so much time with Paul. And if I was him, I'd be so upset about the fact that sometimes they share a bed. I'm like, Paul is gay. And all these people are convinced that we're like this item. Anyway, it was entertaining, but also stressful at the time, because there is a big part of you that wants to come out and be like, let me like tell you how everything that you're saying is wrong. But then you just waste so much energy on it. Thank you for sharing. And I'm so happy that you're in a better place where those things don't affect you, because there was a part of me, I was like, I don't want to like bring up old things for you. I finish every episode with a segment called Oranges and Lemons, and I would love for you to share your orange and lemon with me. It could be from today or it could be from the past few days. Your orange being something positive and your lemon being something sour.
I love this. Can you go first?
If you want me to, yeah.
You do yours too, yeah?
Yeah, why don't we take turn? I'll do a lemon, you do a lemon.
Okay,
then,
deal. Okay, deal.
My lemon is that yesterday I had a biopsy. Well, 2 biopsies actually. I had a skin check, which I would encourage everyone to do. If you've been putting off booking it in, book it in, because I pushed mine from what was supposed to be 6 months to 18 months. And seeing the images on the mole map and how much my skin changed in that much time was quite confronting. And yeah, she cut out a little mole on my scalp, so like under some of my hair here, and then one off the back of my leg. And I'm hoping that they'll come back fine, but TBC. But yeah, that was a lemon because it hurt. But she did a great job. I thought she was going to shave off some of my hair and she didn't, so bless her.
Your hair on
my head.
Oh, did she take it from your head?
Yeah, it's like from where I part my hair on the side. So obviously,
and that's why it's so important to get a mole check, hey? Because I feel like we look when we're doing our own skin check. It's like, look, obviously you need to go to a professional every 12 months, very important. But you're like, oh, I can't. But it's also the moles that you can't see.
Yeah, I never would have seen that. And the one on my calf was tiny, so something that I never would have thought was even worth looking at. So. Yeah, we shall see. It's a bit of a lemon. It wasn't the worst experience ever, but it also, it's not particularly pleasant.
No. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's anyone that hasn't got their skin check, this is your reminder.
Yes.
My lemon is that last week I had a panic attack and I am absolutely fine now. No problem at all. Very grateful that I have tools to work through it. But when it lasted a full day, and I just kept thinking to myself, now I've done so much work on myself, this is going to go away. Like, I've worked through this stuff, I've worked through these feelings, I've done all this work, it's going to go. And then it lasted the full day. And I think I sat that night in this kind of like frustration of like, I thought I've fixed myself. Like, literally that was my thought. But it was a reminder that like we're always on this journey and there's always work that we have to do. And then coming out of it, it's kind of then, can I then flow it into my orange? It then became, I suppose, my orange, because I am so much better with my tools that I have built and the work that I have done. I'm so much more equipped to deal with it. And I was able to work through it like it hasn't kind of dragged out for 3 months. Sometimes what I found when I've been in like a lower mental health time is that something like that would happen, and then I would let that be the story of my next 4 months. It's like that victim mindset of like, oh no, everyone's out to get me, everything's hard. When you're in that, no one's gonna, I think you think that people are gonna come and help you, and like the world is happening, everything's against you, but it's like, no, you are in control of changing that. And so obviously, depending on where you're at in your mental health journey, like you need to get professional help if it is really serious. That's incredibly important. But for me, it was a reminder of, no, I have come really far. Yes, it is a journey and I'm never going to be like fixed or perfect, but I've got more tools to kind of deal with it now, which felt good.
That is a great orange. And I'm going to kind of copy you because mine is similar. I think when we're sitting here talking about anxiety in the way that it has presented for us over the years, reflecting on it like that and being able to talk about it. Yeah, I feel like I'm almost looking at a different person when I talk about my anxiety from that time and how far I've come. And I have done a lot of therapy. Like you said, I think if you can access professional help, it is so important. And I have a psychologist appointment today and I feel really good today. So I'm like, what are we going to talk about? But I guarantee you I'll sit down and within 2 minutes I'll start crying because it's just what I do. It's crying therapy. But it's helped so much. And I think it's really important to look back on how far you have come. And it doesn't always have to be in huge ways. It can be just like little things. But yeah, I've loved talking about anxiety with you. Because I feel like we are really similar and I feel seen.
Well,
so thank you.
Thank you, Liv. I've been looking forward to this chat for so long. So thank you for having me.
It went so quickly and I had so many more questions to ask you. So I think we might have to get you back on. But I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on, Laura.
Appreciate you too.
Thanks for listening to Tell Me More. This show wouldn't be possible without you. If you'd like to show your support, please subscribe or follow the podcast on your favourite platforms. And don't forget, you can watch full episodes on YouTube and Spotify.